The truth shows your weakness. This is the whole piece of narcissism that narcissists are running away from, that the truth makes you weak. Maybe you've thought this, maybe you think this, maybe you're wondering, is this part of what affects you at times, of that piece of being truthful? Well, for a narcissist and for a toxic person, the truth is something that is exposing. The truth is something that is revealing. The truth is vulnerable. You see, as a narcissist, one of the things that I struggled with was this concept of truth, actually being vulnerable, actually being truthful about the things that were going on, being truthful about what I was thinking, being truthful about what I was doing, being truthful about every single aspect of my life. I didn't want to be truthful. And there was a piece of this that, like, hiding stuff and not being truthful was exciting. It was this high of, I'm getting away with something, I'm sliding something under the radar, I'm doing something that's exciting, when in reality it was just an addiction, or it was just something that was wrong. But putting yourself in a place of, hey, truth feels like it's weakness. That's the place that I found myself. I found myself thinking, if I tell the truth, then I am weak. Because that weakness comes from this piece of vulnerability. And vulnerability, I thought, was weakness. Meaning there was this piece of me that thought, if I tell the truth, it's going to show people who I actually am. It's going to expose. It's going to bring all this shit to light. And then people are going to see, oh, he's not that great kind of a guy. And I didn't want to do that. So instead, I would hide. I would lie. I wouldn't tell the truth because I viewed it as being weak. There was this piece inside of me that was like, if I tell people what I actually want, then I will look weak. Then I will look awful. Then I didn't want to reveal that. Now, we find with a lot of people that people want to be able to hide the truth that's in their life. They want to be able to hide their fantasies. They want to be able to hide their dreams. They want to be able to hide the stuff that they look up, the stuff that they do. They want to be able to hide everything. Because truth makes people feel vulnerable. This vulnerability that comes up of being real is hard for a lot of people to do. But for a narcissist, it's almost impossible. And the reason why it's almost impossible is because there's already this layer of guilt and shame that a narcissist believes in. That believes in, there's this aspect that he is a bad person. So for me, there was this aspect of growing up, I viewed myself as being a bad person. There would be guilt and shame from different actions or thoughts or attitudes or whatever it might be. And I would view myself as I did a bad thing and then I am a bad person. And as a result, that piece would be so ingrained in me, I could never let it go. Shame was just this piece that had to keep happening over and over, and I had to keep hiding it. Because if I revealed it, if I was vulnerable, if I exposed it, that was weakness. Now, it's hard because for a lot of other people, they're like, it's not weakness. Like, that's empowerment. That's great. That's awesome that you're honest. But for a narcissist and for a toxic person who has something to hide, truth seems like weakness. Now, with truth seeming like weakness, a lot of times it will only perpetuate the problem. And the toxic person in your life will not just lie one time, but will lie on top of that lie and lie on top of that lie and continue to do so over and over and over to look a certain way, to be a certain way, to present himself a certain way so that he feels better about himself. How many times do you do this? Because it's not just inherent to narcissism that people lie. People lie all over. Sometimes we stretch the truth. Sometimes we do a white lie. Sometimes we pretend it's not so bad. But we start doing different things to be able to hide this piece of like what's vulnerably actually inside. Narcissist is afraid of this exposure piece of, if you expose him, what's actually going to be underneath? Are you actually going to see the truth of who he actually is, of how he doesn't care, of how he's obsessed with different things or different women or whatever it might be? But truth seems like weakness. So a narcissist typically will lie over and over and over again to be able to avoid that piece of accountability. What you need to understand is there's not any growth and there's not any possibility without there being vulnerability. If a person is not willing to be vulnerable, there is really nothing that can actually change. Because if they're not vulnerable, saying, hey, this is where I'm at, this is what's going on, this is what I'm struggling with, this is what I'm dealing with, whatever it might be, he's not going to change anything else, because you have to have this level of vulnerability saying, this is where I am. It's just like you want to go from point A and you want to go to point B. And the hard part is point B might be, hey, this looks great. Like, this is a committed marriage. This is a faithful person. This is an honest person. And then point A, we don't lock down. And it's like this aspect that if a person is not vulnerable, they're not actually setting the tone. They're not actually finding out where they're starting from. They're not actually finding out the facts of this is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm looking at. This is what I'm speaking. This is what I'm seeing. All these different things. If there's not the facts here, there's nothing that we can actually build to be able to get to the next place. It's like having this great idea of like, I want to go to this direction. I want to do this, but you haven't identified where you are on the map. This is what happens a lot of times in toxicity. Is a narcissist doesn't want to be truthful, doesn't want to be honest about where he actually is on the map, what he's actually doing, the lies that he actually has. Because as a result, he'll continue to future fake and tell you, hey, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm going to do, this is how we're going to live. When in reality, there's no facts about what's actually true. You're going to see this in the relationship. You're going to see the person, the toxic person in your life, future faking, telling you there's a reality out there that you don't have. But the problem is, if he's not acknowledging the reality that's currently now, the facts of what's actually true now, nothing's going to change. And you're going to be left thinking and hoping and wishing and praying and thinking that you might get to that place, but you never do. Why? Because he's not willing to be honest. He's not willing to be truthful. And if he's not willing to be truthful, nothing will change. Nothing will grow, nothing will develop, nothing will come out of this because he's not being vulnerable about where he actually is.